and welcome to the Midwest Christian Outreach Unknown Webcast. This is just a bit of a trigger warning for those who believe words are more injurious than sticks and stones. I really am so conservative I can't turn left even when I'm driving.
Yes, you are.
In addition to giving trigger warnings to our viewers, Ron Hensel and I both drink coffee for your protection. This week, Corey Miller and Bill Roach join us to discuss TPUSA, politics, faith, and Gen Z. My name is Don Vano. I'm president of Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. in Wonder Lake, Illinois, which produces the Unknown Webcast. And our senior researcher is Ron Hensel, who
Still.
will introduce today's sponsors. And here is Ron Baby.
I'm usually Ronnie Baby. Okay.
It is. I just let you grow up just for today.
Greetings from sunny Florida, where the palm tree came out, saw its shadow, and now we have 12 more months of summer. Our sponsor for this edition of the Unknown Webcast is World's End Theology Outlet, your one-stop resource for half-baked heresies, dubious doctrines, and other ideas whose time is gone. World's End Theology Outlet. Our regular legal disclaimer. Our guests on today's webcast insert names here. That would be Dr. Bill Roach and Dr. Corey Miller. Have no connection whatsoever to any of the satirical content of the Unknown Webcast hereafter referred to as the webcast, although we probably will not mention it again. The satirical content includes any and all commercials, end credits, puns, smart remarks, or anything else that might fall under the definition of satire. In the meantime, Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. bears no liability for or responsibility for anyone's opinions regarding this satirical content. Notice, the opinions expressed on this webcast are ours and should be yours too. If you enjoy it, or if it really annoys you and you want to inflict it on someone else to ensure your continued access to this program, please go to midwestoutreach.org, click the yellow donate button, and contribute as you feel led. And as you do, never fear, this webcast is Y2K compliant. And don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite video channels. Now, Don, I think I forgot to do something. Are you there?
I'm here.
You seem frozen. I'm going to come out. I'm going to stop sharing and come back in. Can you make that happen smoothly for me? Okay. Yeah. And now I'm going to start sharing again because I have to click a special button. And if I don't,
button.
The
Yes,
special button, I think it was hiding behind my mic when I was looking for it. Let's go back. All right. And now our special guests, Dr. Bill Roach and Dr. Corey Miller. That special button worked this time, didn't it? Okay.
It did. It did indeed.
I wish it was just a default setting, but it's not. Greetings, Doctors Miller and Roach.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Even though I've been on this podcast before, I can't remember that we actually did it because I've never heard of this podcast before since it's
we try to keep it under wraps.
It's unknown. See,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, that testifies to the success of our approach, doesn't it?
It's so unknown that even those who have been on the show don't even remember or know about it.
Well, that has to do with this flashing light we hold up before their eyes just at the end of the program.
I'm not looking this time.
Okay.
So, couple of things. Let's start off with, just for those who don't know who you guys are, you both have been on here. Corey Miller, short introduction, please.
Former Mormon from Utah, former pastor, former police officer, former professor at Purdue and Indiana University, and now president. So a lot of P's there.
Whoa.
President of Ratio Christi on 100 college campuses.
100 college campuses. And for those who are unaware of Ratio Christi, what is it?
Ratio Christi means the reason of Christ, and it focuses on thoughtful Christianity, giving reasons for why we believe what we believe. And we've got a professor's division, a high school division, a press with product line resources for churches and homeschools and parents. And then we are international as well.
Good. Cool. Great organization, by the way. I love it. Dr. Bill Roach.
Yes. My name is Bill Roach, and I've been on this podcast before, and I currently serve as the Dean of the Norman Geisler Chair of Apologetics at Veritas International University, oversee their apologetics program teach various courses there. And we have another school that we've recently started in probably the last year or so, but officially launched this fall, called Redeemer Seminary in Phoenix, Arizona, technically Gilbert, outside of Phoenix. And I oversee their theology program at that organization there. But related to other things, I've worked at various institutions over the years, spoken at Ratio Christi events over the years, and author, worked with Norm Geisler for many years and different individuals along the lines doing apologetics, and past president of the International Society of Christian Apologetics.
All right. And Bill and I enjoy in common that we were both mentored by Dr. Norm Geisler. So he was
Amen.
an amazing guy. So today we're picking up on something that has been, of course, international news, and caught me a little by surprise. Of course, caught everyone by surprise in the sense that Charlie Kirk was assassinated last Wednesday. But it was a name that I was familiar with, but not a person that I knew all that well. Never really followed him, didn't watch his videos. To my surprise, my son-in-law told me the other day that he listens to Charlie Kirk every day for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And so as we thought about this, I thought, well, we probably need to do something on this, but I'm not sure exactly where to start because it's more or less a political organization. And I looked around for a statement of faith and did a number of other things. I was a little concerned about some of the theology at first. And I spoke with Corey trying to sort it out. And he said, well, he wouldn't have a statement of faith or theology on TPUSA because it's a political organization. I went, duh. So what is TPUSA for those who do not know? Anybody?
So again, as we talked about it in the past, they are a political organization that was founded by Charlie Kirk when he was 18 years old. And one of the things that he was very adamant about was the notion that we live in a free country. We have the freedom of speech. We have the ability to debate and dialogue different topics. And he took that to the university campuses, setting up his card table, and he wanted to argue the big ideas with people. So the whole venue that he's had for over a decade now. But the organization is really committed to the idea that we have religious freedom, freedom of speech, that the Constitution is one of the greatest human documents ever produced, and that capitalism is much better than any other socialist, Marxist form of government or economics.
Okay. Well, that's pretty straightforward. And he was much loved by all comers. Yes, no.
No, he certainly had some detractors. In fact, the person that assassinated him said when he got arrested, I wanted to make a statement that I oppose virtually everything this person stands for.
Okay.
So that includes his Christian faith, that includes natural, traditional sexual relations, certainly gender binary, things like that, that really don't make people on the left that are infused with a Marxist ideology very happy.
Yeah. I would say that is sort of an understatement. I've been a little surprised, I think, at the vitriol that is coming from the left and celebration that he was assassinated. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before.
Well, you have statistics that come out of Rutgers University that show for those who self-identify with being on the left, 52 point something percent of them think that it is okay, justifiable, if someone assassinated President Donald Trump. And about the same amount think the same with Elon Musk. And so that and another set of statistics reveal that this new, what they're calling assassination culture, has become sort of inbred on the left when they see someone that is very threatening to them, someone such as Hitler, a fascist, which becomes a name brand icon to placate on anybody who you think is a threat to your way of life. And so, coming out of an assassination culture, we think about Luigi Mangione with the
Right.
CEO of United Healthcare, and you look at how the response was from so many people, females, Gen Zers. It was almost like Charles Manson when so many females swooned at his, presence. This guy was looked at as a hero, almost a superhero by some people, more sympathy for him than for the victim who was guilty of capitalism and oppression and things like that. So this whole oppression narrative that Marxism has wrought, it is rotten, but has wrought in this culture from the campus to the culture, has really taken root. And you can see how ingrained it is in the faculty at universities.
Yeah, you have a lot on the universities. You have a new book coming out in not too long, a few weeks now. What? Yeah, get it. I'm looking for the cover so I can show it.
Yeah, well, it's called The Progressive Miseducation of America, Confronting the Cultural Revolution from the Classroom to Your Community. And it essentially is a problem solution book looking at what in the world just happened to our country. This is no longer grandma's America. Second third of the book is look no further than the universities. Politics is downstream from culture, culture from education, and at the apex of education is the university. And so as goes the university, so goes the culture. As goes the U.S. university, so goes the world. And so I showcase in there the surprise to many that we started most of the universities in the United States, and their presidents for the first 2 centuries at least were also members of the clergy. And there were 2 ideological revolutions that came about, and I dished that out and show how that happened. And we are living in the second of those right now. And so then I get into the third part of the book, which is a call for a third revolution. And that third revolution is we need to start loving God with our mind again, with the head of Christ, not just with the hands and the heart of Christ. We have literally lost our minds in the evangelical church in the last century. And so calling people to think about whether Christianity is good, not oppressive for the world, whether it is reasonable and whether it is true. And so there's the cultural and classical Christian apologetics. And then I identify and go after target markets that need to listen to this. And they are pastors, parents and grandparents, philanthropists and donors, parachurches, political allies, and prayers. All hands on deck. It's the university, stupid. Even if you're not called to go into the university, and we need to be about the long march through the institutions like the Marxists did before us. Even if you're not called to go in, everybody in America needs to prepare for the ideology that's coming out of it, because you can no longer hide from it. You can't go into your corporate job. You can't go into your church without getting it. You can't go into your campus ministry or to your seminaries and Christian academic societies and campus ministries. The barbarians are no longer at the gates. They're in the citadel, and people need to wake up and realize what this stuff is, because it's not going away anytime soon.
I was thinking, when we were talking about the celebratory mood of the left, and you're talking about the universities and what they've done, what's happened has reached all the way down to the children of the university graduates, it seems. There was a video that's been circulating where a mother goes up to her 2 daughters, and this was obviously before the Charlie Kirk assassination, and she says to her 2 daughters, "Girls, I've just received the greatest news in the world." And the older of these 2 daughters, I don't know, she looked maybe 9 or 10, she said, "Donald Trump died." And she goes, "Okay, the second greatest news in the world." And then the other girl said, "J.D. Vance died." And she says, "Okay, the third greatest." The other, and then one of them said, "Elon Musk." And she said, "Okay, let me just tell you the greatest news. The greatest news that I just heard: Taylor Swift is getting married. And it was
Wow.
like,
Wow.
what had preceded that was more significant culturally.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
to me, it's
right.
not significant that a mother in her maybe around 30-ish thinks that Taylor Swift getting married is like the greatest thing that happened this year. What was significant was the words that came out of her daughter's mouths
First.
and what they said about how she was raising them, and who knows how many others are raising their kids.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, in part, it's how she's raising them, because she's raising them disconnected from what they're learning in school and social media. Um, I did this a couple of weeks ago, maybe, uh, because I think parents are out of touch with how children are actually being influenced through social media. There's a very fine book. We had him on here a while back, Chris Martin, called "The Wolf in Their Pockets." And one of the things early on, he talks about is that if you grew up, well, I say in 1950s or 60s, I don't know, Des Moines, Iowa, for example, uh, pretty much everyone in your area would have the same worldview, the same belief system, uh, respect for parents for the most part, those sorts of things, because you had your information largely from the people that you lived around. Today, that's not the case. If you're like 35, let's say, or younger, your influences are international, not so much from your parents. It's through your social media, your emails, your um, Facebook and TikTok, all that sort of thing. And so you're being literally trained by everyone on those venues, which sort of explains some of the things that we have seen happen, like when hashtag BLM did rioting. Suddenly you had the same riots occurring in other countries, disconnected from us because it's happening by social media. So, how do you, in your opinion, do you think? By the way, Charlie, Bill, someone mentioned that uh, your recent YouTube post addressing culture and Charlie Kirk much needed. So be encouraged, lad.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate
Uh,
it.
uh, so, with that being the case, if how has Charlie Kirk been influencing culture in the opposite direction?
Well, I think what you find is that Charlie Kirk is an individual who, first of all, he's readily aware of it. And one of the things that he did that was a lot different than a lot of churches is that Charlie Kirk recognized that there was a rut that many conservatives found themselves in, which is we tend to be leave me alone, stay secluded. And Charlie was, no, we have a place in this culture. We have a voice in this culture. And if the universities really are the machines and the drivers of information and ideas, we need to have a place both there and in politics. But, there's another aspect that you hit on, and this actually takes us back many years to think about the significance of this. There was a way of framing this. This actually comes from Richard Mao, and I don't agree with everything he said, but he nailed this. And he said, historically, to understand the South, you have to understand its traditions. And to understand California, you have to understand what's trending. And that was used as a sociological feature for understanding what people value. And I would say when he put that out, that was most likely true because myself being from the Midwest, I was never a guy that really cared about whatever was trending. Like, I can't tell you the top 10 songs that are on the radio, even to this day. If it weren't for the fact that the NFL had Taylor Swift on it, I probably wouldn't know who she was, kind of thing. Like, I don't care about that trendy stuff. But we now live in a world where it's not just California is driven by that which is trending. It is the entire world is driven by that which is trending. And that's because of social media and the ready access to it. And what Charlie Kirk was able to do better than pretty much anybody that I've seen is that he was able to harness the arena of ideas in the marketplace of ideas with social media in a way that those ideas became trending. And when you look at it, he was able to get literally millions of views on his videos. And I think that that's something that we as evangelicals need to think about, is that we live in a digital age, and that digital age is going to require us to engage in that kind of arena. And Charlie was just such an expert at doing that.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. So now, Corey, when you and I were talking, I was kind of musing about the collection of individuals he was working with, and that he's on the campus, like you're on the campus, but in a different way. And you pointed out that TPUSA is a political organization, not a religious one. How does that affect the individuals and their faith walks, let's say, in light of that? Is it necessary that they're Christians?
No, certainly not. I mean, when he talk about the campus where he was at. So I've lectured at that campus along with Peter Boghossian. We were allies speaking on viewpoint diversity, the death of intellectual diversity in the universities. At the time, just before George Floyd died and COVID hit, before this whole critical race theory was even known, sort of like the pre 9/11, and we didn't know what Islam was.
Right.
So Peter Boghossian and I had already started going on tour together, started it at that university where Charlie Kirk got killed, and then went to Utah State also, where we some tried to get us canceled by calling us logical fascists just because we were practicing viewpoint diversity, which is a code word for racism in that kind of intellectual ideology that they hold. Right. And that place was where this shooter was initially radicalized at Utah State. But Charlie's comments just before he got shot had to do with school shootings. But just prior to that, and trans school shootings in particular, which is really interesting now thinking about the shooter's roommate or partner being, in love with furries and things like that. We could say more there about Peter Singer and the philosophies undergirding all of that. But he said something about Mormonism. A kid came up, it's Utah, of course, and it's UVU, which was sort of the school that if BYU was overfilled, we needed somewhere else to go. And UVU started as a community college, and then it blew up to a major university in the area. And so it's really close to BYU. So you got a lot of Mormon kids there. So one brought up the question of Mormonism. And Charlie Kirk said, look, I love that the Mormon church sends their people on missions all over the world. They're very polite people. And I'm an evangelical. And so that's different, but I'm not one of those that hates Mormons. In fact, half my staff are Mormon. Half my staff are Mormon.
Wow.
Right.
So he's headquartered in Arizona, of course, which has a little city called Moroni.
Oh, really?
Book of Mormon, right? So it's kind of Utah-esque there. And so there's a lot of Mormon influence. And again, with Charlie Kirk, his movement is a political movement. It is not a religious one. So in TPUSA, you have atheists, agnostics, libertarians, Jews, Christians, Mormons. It's conservative and libertarian in certain respects. Over time, he took an interest in getting recruits for the Republican Party, and you're not going to find those in gay bars per se. So you're going to find them probably in churches, because below the Republican, it's like we've got these Venn diagrams, right? In the Democratic Party, it's not the same as liberals, and that's not the same as secularists. But it tends to be politics up on top is Democrat and Republican. Deeper yet is liberal and conservative, and deeper still yet is secular and religious. So those three identities are not the same, but they are often encompassed in Venn diagrams. And so Charlie Kirk is going to the churches initially, hoping to get recruits, but also helping to infuse these ideas that he has into the churches who were just about to send kids off to the universities. And then I think over time, he started to realize the value of this and how deeper this goes. And he started to go deeper and deeper. And you could hear it coming out in his messaging that it's the conservatism. And then beyond the conservatism was Christ, right? And so one of the contributing authors to my book is Lucas Miles, the director of TPUSA Faith, which is an entire faith division for the pastors. And another endorser was Frank Turek, who was there at the event. It helps Charlie with his apologetics, and then another one yet was Owen Anderson, philosopher who is actually suing Arizona University, and he's a professor of philosophy there. But he endorsed the book, and he told me last night, put a picture up on my Facebook post, that there were 10,000 students there last night. At the memorial there at Arizona State University. And every student that got up talked about how Charlie talked about Christ. And then Lucas Miles gave the capstone at the very end and encouraged people, if they haven't received Christ, to receive Christ. So Charlie wanted to be known for his courage and his faith. So you can see what was ultimately driving him, even though the organization per se is a political organization, not a religious one. The religious one is TPUSA Faith. And there is some connection there. There's also some disconnection there for good reasons.
Right. And in recent years, at least, of course, I can't go back and in the short amount of time we've had to figure out where he was on all of this, like 8 years ago or 5 years ago. But it seems like what we have is someone whose faith he grew into over time. Probably, it sounds like he was evangelical-ish in his younger years, but took it more seriously as time went on. And he seems to be, from what I'm hearing, like a voracious reader. He just wanted to know everything, including the faith. And so he was able to connect with those who could really teach him well, like Frank Turek, for example, on apologetics issues. So you have that kind of growth. So what we now had was a Christian who's pretty solid in his faith, a good defender apologetically of ideas, including faith ideas, running an organization that's kind of religiously eclectic, but focused on politics. Is that a safe, fair analysis?
I think
What
we've seen, I think it is.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I think one thing that's interesting in what you were saying is that there is a progression that's taken place in Charlie. And it's interesting because World Magazine actually ran an article published by Dr. Albert Mohler talking about Charlie Kirk. I mean, there have been a whole host of articles in there. But one of the things that Dr. Mohler talked about is this issue that when he first met Charlie, and, if you meet Charlie, Charlie was very engaging, very outgoing. And one of the interesting things is that Mohler talked about there was an aspect of Charlie that was a little bit off-putting to him at first. And you're like, well, what was that? And he qualifies it. And he said that Charlie wanted to engage the issues of politics and conservatism, but he, in one sense, didn't want to engage with the religious conservatives at that time. And Mohler then uses that as a segue to say that there was a change in Charlie from the beginning till later on. And it was because he said he was growing out of a libertarian idea into a more conservative, even traditional Republican idea as it relates to that. And that's just a living example of Dr. Mohler detailing his interaction, saying that he thought this was going to be a difficult thing as a religious thinker in the public sphere, as Dr. Mohler is, dealing with Charlie Kirk, to then see Charlie move closer to Mohler than it was for other religious figures moving closer to the libertarian ideals as it relates to engaging with ethical issues as libertarians do and religious issues as libertarians would.
Well, the other side sometimes has difficulty, not sometimes, most of the time seems to have difficulties with conservatives and even kind of warn the younger, say, college age individuals about what happens when you go home to your conservative
Right.
roots?
I mean, Thanksgiving's coming up again, isn't it? And our friends at World's End Theology Outlet, your one-stop resource for half-baked heresies, dubious doctrines, and other ideas whose time is gone, has some suggestions for those situations. So, after 4 semesters at your small progressive liberal arts college, you're flying home to visit your red state relatives. You remembered to bring your emotional support puppies. You packed all your comfort blankets and pillows. You even remembered your adult coloring books, but it still feels like something is missing. You don't feel safe. What can you do? You need Instant Safe Space. Instant Safe Space comes with patented anti-free speech technology. It provides guaranteed protection from, go ahead, trigger words, microaggressions, unwelcome ideas, and cognitive dissonance. So feel protected, feel safe with Instant Safe Space available at World's End Theology Outlet.
And there you
I
go.
have a problem slide in that presentation. I've been trying to fix it, but there it is.
It was fearful, I think.
Yeah, it's just a little timid. So,
So
Bill, I saw a picture of you with Charlie on your Facebook page?
Yeah, we actually had done events together out in Phoenix. Probably one of the last ones we did was with James Lindsay, myself, and Mike O'Fallon. And we were just trying to deal with a lot of the issues that we're running into as it relates to what I spoke on at that time was issues related to what was known as perspectivalism, which is the idea of that different perspectives in this sense are giving different types of knowledge into truth. There's no essential concept of knowledge that's across all different people's places and time periods. And that's a whole other conversation. But Charlie came in to engage on how we as Christians should deal with that on the college campuses and what that meant at the time for the election of Donald Trump and the engagement with it. And then James, who is sort of, one of the key individuals dealing with critical theory, we all partnered up together on this with Mike O'Fallon in order to have a robust conference in the church. And that's one of the things is Charlie didn't just speak at churches. On campuses, he spoke at churches also to address these kinds of issues.
And Corey, could you tell us about your relationship with Charlie?
I've never connected personally with Charlie. We've had discussions, obviously, with the director of TPUSA Faith who endorsed the book. I'll be at a TPUSA event tonight. We've connected with some of their regional people about doing integrated talks and gatherings between Ratio Christi on campus and TPUSA. Again, they're political, right? But
right, yeah.
One of the cultural apologetic talking points these days, in light of the new cultural predominant ideology pervading the universities, is this postmodern critical theory or cultural Marxism. And so our apologetics needs to be able to defend and answer questions like, why is Christianity not just false? Why is it oppressive, wicked, hateful? Those are the big questions. We have to be able to say, like Justin Martyr, who was one of the first Christian martyrs,
right,
whose defense in his apologies to the Roman Senate and the emperor weren't, is the Bible true or does God exist? It's Christians are good citizens, because the charge at their time was that Christianity was full of a bunch of January 6th insurrectionists. Right?
exactly.
We were insurrectionists against the state and not loyal to Caesar. And the Christian response is, look, we cannot say Caesar is kurios or Lord, but we can be the best of citizens, because even when no one else is looking, we believe God is looking, and we are supposed to obey the laws of the land. Christians can be good citizens. So today, our response is, no, Christianity is not oppressive. Christianity is good for the world, even if the world doesn't think Christianity is good to them. It's good for them. And so that's where, like, a TPUSA Faith and TPUSA can still come together. It's where Ratio Christi and TPUSA on campus can come together. We believe that capitalism, the free market system, for example, the author of it, who, at the time of David Hume's death in 1776, well, The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, who was good friends as a moral philosopher with David Hume, wrote The Wealth of Nations, the father of modern capitalism. Well, what does he talk about? He talks about the invisible hand of God. He says it's not from the beneficence of the brewer, the baker, or the butcher that we get our dinner at night, but from self-interest.
Right.
And out of that idea, he was developing this free market exchange of values. And once it got over to the US, by the time Alexander Hamilton and others were there, within 15 years, the United States was the most wealthy and prosperous nation ever, and it's never gone back. And because of our Christian heritage and the strength of it here in the United States, we've also been the most generous per capita and generous nationally. And there is no measurable way, for example, in which secular progressives or even religious progressives outgive conservative Christians. And that is in terms of personal generosity, in terms of time, talent, the giving of blood, adoption, the names of hospitals, you name it. So not only did we start universities and start this kind of checks and balances government that gives us that says that our rights are given by God, but we also started hospitals and things like that. We need to be able to show that Christianity is good for the world. And those things, I think, are things that Charlie Kirk's TPUSA has in mind. They're not just greedy old capitalists. They're thinking about it from a Christian perspective, because it was, well, the Christians who really launched that.
Yeah. I have a interesting. This is a Facebook post done by T.J. McConaughey that says this: because we're labeled as right-wing extremists, as was Charlie. And he writes this: was Charlie Kirk a controversial far-right extremist? I spent the last few days watching more Charlie Kirk videos than ever before. Many people still describe him as controversial or far-right or extreme. Based on his videos, here's what I gathered about what he believed. First, unborn people are people. I agree with that. People are to be judged on their individual actions, not their group identity. I think that's really important. There are only two genders. Charlie was pretty clear on that. Illegal immigration undermines American wages by permitting an unregulated workforce that allows companies to exploit foreign workers. Things are too expensive. Government has caused inflation, and inflation is one of the biggest threats to young people's well-being. Sympathy is better than empathy. I saw several videos just on this where people were taking umbrage with his saying that he doesn't believe in sympathy. But they take it out of context because he goes, we need to have, empathy. We need to have sympathy. We need to reach out to people. So, and we see that a lot, people taking what he says out of context and then building some other scenario that is untrue. Israel is an ally worth protecting, but its government deserves scrutiny. Well, that's wise. Sympathy is better than empathy. Higher education has become a leftist institution, teaching students what to think rather than how to think and plunging them into debt while doing it. Corey, what do you think of that?
Well, yeah, it has become a secular baptismal font, so that when parents and grandparents send their kids unprepared into these secular baptismal fonts, they're literally paying for the apostasy of their own children. The ratio of liberal to conservative professor in the mid 90s, just before the second ideological revolution began, it was 2.3 to 1. It now is 12 to 1 for those retiring, 23 to 1 for those who just got tenure and have 30, 35 years ahead of them. In the Ivy Leagues, where the parents want to send all their kids, it's 27 to 1. And the Yale statistics that just came out for their social sciences and humanities, it's 78 to 1.
Mhm.
So, and 97% of Yale faculty gave campaign contributions to Joe Biden. So these are not diverse ideas, diverse organizations at all. They are echo chambers. They are baptismal fonts together with blasphemy laws. And then let me tell you just about the statistics with the kids related to what Charlie Kirk just faced. In a 2017 Yale study, and I think this is getting even worse, 48% of students across the nation support campus speech codes. This tends to be one of the things we run up against. At any one time, I'm in litigation or legal proceedings between 3 to 5 campuses, right? And the speech codes is one of those. 81% of say that words are a form of violence. So when you used the word
Right.
illegal immigration just a minute ago, you are erasing their existence. You are dehumanizing them. When you don't refer to them as trans people and you say that there's only 2 binaries, you erase their existence. That's as good as death. And these students take this home, and this is how they manipulate their Christian parents and family by saying, Mom, would you rather have a dead son or a live daughter? You choose.
Right.
And suddenly the parents become progressive just to hold on to their child. But 81% believe that words are a form of violence. 33% believe that physical violence is justified to prevent hate speech. 1 out of 3. And this was 5 to 10 years ago.
Right.
1 out of 3, it's justified to prevent hate speech. Well, I'm glad no one does hate speech. Well, 66% say that hate speech is anything a student believes to be considered hurtful to a particular person. That justification for taking out Charlie Kirk, the ultimate fascist who got the ultimate Hitler elected, is not only morally permissible on a utilitarian ethic that rejects God as the giver of the sanctity of human life, it is morally obligatory.
Right. Right. Which brings me to the next one, and I'm going to go to Dr. Bill Roach on this one. Discussion and debate are crucial to our divided world.
Yes, it is. You know, the free market of our ideas requires that. Truth demands that we have that. You know, for a free world to actually take place, you know, we were recently dealing with this, as I was telling you before we got on the show here, where I live here in North Carolina. We wanted to have an event for Charlie Kirk, and there was so much red tape around it. It was going to cost a significant amount of money, and they wanted a $2 million insurance policy just to stand out in our community area here and pray for Charlie Kirk. So then I raised the question of, you know, how in the world are all these other groups going to meet? Like every time I'm down here, I see people protesting. I see different groups with different signs all the time. You have all these parades. You have all of these different things. Now, some of them are recognized as events, but then I asked the question, I was like, well, how much does it cost to protest? And they said, well, it's free. You just had to fill out a form. I go, well, then that's exactly what we're going to do. So technically, we're not having a prayer vigil for Charlie Kirk. We're having the first official in our area prayer protest for Charlie Kirk. But just think about this. I'm located in the American South right now in the quote Bible Belt. And in order to pray in public, I had to do an official protest for it. Is that the free market of ideas? In addition to it, you know, when you look at this, we are just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. We're located in Wake Forest, North Carolina. In Raleigh, they didn't have to go through all of these different steps that we're having to go through. And you see the opposite of the free market of ideas. You know, people were getting their car headlights crushed in as they were standing out there in prayer for Charlie Kirk recently. So I think what you're going to find is that people use a variety of means to shut down the free communication of ideas. You were talking about litigation of words is one way that people will do it. What I've found is that if they can't beat your will on these things, they're just going to have so much red tape on ordinances and procedures. And I just had to remind them very clearly, we have this thing called the First Amendment. And I have the ability to come up with free speech and the freedom of religion to freely gather in a public place for prayer. And I find it just, I know this is me sort of speaking out of my emotion in this regard, but I find it quite offensive that I have to do a protest in the United States of America to stand and pray for a man that was martyred just a week ago. In addition to it, it was going to be a minimum of 45 days to get the permit in order to do it. Now, I'm not trying to downplay Charlie Kirk in this regard. I'm not trying to downplay the circumstances of what's going to take place, but we live in a particular cultural moment. And 45 days from now, people are not going to be talking about it like they are this week leading up to the funeral and the events that take place. So I just said it was unacceptable. And we as Christians have to use our rights like the Apostle Paul used his rights in order to ensure that we have our free use of our freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and ability to gather here in the United States. And what I have found in not only this circumstance, but other circumstances, is that if Christians would merely just push back, run the playbook for, yes, we will respond legally and within our bounds, many times we have a good chance of winning those battles. But what they do is they work on defeating the will of an individual to fight in this regard, or they use a lot of social pressures to get people to not do so. That's one caveat. The other caveat that I've seen is that we did an event some time ago with a woman named Chi Van Fleet, and she is a woman spelled K-I, who wrote a book titled Mao's America. And I remember talking to her and sitting there listening to it, and she's making this parallel of what happened in China under Mao, which she grew up there. She grew up working in the fields. And one of the things is they made it that, she was a landowner, and there are certain things that landowners did, and there were certain things that landowners said, but they also policed the speech of it. And she gave a speech up in Loudoun County, Virginia, where she drew the parallel between what she faced in China and what we're facing here in the United States. And the point of it is that the country that she loves, the United States, is quickly becoming like the country she left, namely China. And they use a variety of different struggle sessions, which are these intentional social pressures against particular groups and not against just fiscal people in the sense like you are the rich versus the poor, but they use social capital where, if you're a white Western male capitalist in this regard, you not only should not speak, but when you do speak, you bring disrepute and violence, not just physical violence, but some kind of emotional, social, philosophical, ethical violence against individuals. So if they can't get you in the legal realm, they're going to do the struggle session approach that she talks about in her book, Mao's America, in order to silence people in the public sphere.
Well,
but I know that's fun. Let me add one more caveat. I think one of the biggest issues that we ran into is, and you see it right now, this massive parallel. It's not just in society. It's within the evangelical church.
it is.
We had just 5 years ago, the summer of 2020. And what was interesting is that the exact same tactics used by the progressive left were used by what we thought were conservatives within evangelicalism to silence the biblical understanding of these matters as it relates in our churches, in our pulpits, and in our seminaries. So this is not a problem out there. This is a problem that's also in the church house. And we must, as pastors and theologians and apologists, we have to be willing to take the manipulative hits on the chin for the sake of truth. And we have to have the convictions in that regard.
Right. And the training is kind of our task. We're all engaged in this already, to help the churches understand this and convey it to their people, which is a difficult task. Two other things I wanted to mention in this analysis: Jesus before politics, family before politics. So I thought that was interesting because they really picked up something that is a theme, has been a theme with Charlie Kirk for a while now. Is he wants to talk about, he wants people to know about God, family, and the country. Love of God, family, and the country. In that order. I thought that was really, really interesting. Another individual that is a friend of ours, Vishal Mangawati, posted something yesterday that I want to read and get your opinion. He posted this: theologians debate each other. Charlie Kirk, like Paul, was discipling nations and was hated by them. What do you think of that?
Can you read it again?
Yeah.
Uh,
We know that that's
yeah.
rough, a tall order to ask you to read the same thing. I mean,
Well, no, I close it up or I go back and get it, but it's basically Charlie was discipling nations like Paul, and like Paul was hated by them.
You know, when I kind of pause over that word discipling.
Right.
Okay.
But then on the other hand, I kind of rewind to the beginning of our discussion where you said, or somebody said, his website has no statement of faith.
Mhm.
Correct.
And after watching video after video after video, I would put a little asterisk next to that, and I'd say, well, Charlie Kirk was his own statement of faith.
He was.
I mean, half the time he opened his mouth, it was to give a statement of faith. I mean, imagine you have a political, and this is, to me, it's easy to imagine having a political organization that puts a statement of faith on its website, but hardly ever mentions it. With Charlie Kirk, it was just the opposite. There's no statement of faith, but he mentioned it. He talked about it all the time. So, in what sense could we justify the use of the word discipling for what he did? Well, his calling was in the political realm, much like the way a Christian could be called to run for political office. But perhaps because of the way he chose to fulfill this calling, it gave him a lot more freedom to talk about Christ than it would if he were a representative, senator, mayor, whatever, you know.
Oh, true.
Yeah. I mean, he had that, his particular unique way of doing it opened him up completely to talk about Jesus whenever he wanted to, and he appeared to want to do it a lot.
Yeah.
So, you know, was he discipling through this? I can make a case for it.
Yeah.
Was that Turning Point USA's primary goal? No, but seems to have been Charlie Kirk's primary goal.
Yeah.
I guess if you're going to think about, and I imagine in Vishal's mind, given where he is at and knowing his commentaries, he's probably thinking Bible, and disciple nations comes up in the Great Commission passage, right?
Right.
Make disciples of all nations. And so if I'm
Right.
trying to understand Vishal's statement on this, it's hard if you're thinking about discipling believers and Charlie's discipling believers. Well, in a sense, he was, right? Because he's got an entire audience there that has religious believers and non-believers, but he's doing it in the agora, in the marketplace, not in the church. He's not in the synagogue. He's not bringing the Bible to bear with the Jews to prove that Jesus is the Messiah. He's got the Bible right here and right here, so it's biblically informed, but on general revelational issues that are a concern for everybody. This unknown God, this economic system, this freedom. He's appealing, as Aristotle would talk about, generally accepted opinions, GAOs, right? Everybody wants freedom. They all want to buy a house. He's appealing to these intuitions, almost in a smuggled in kind of a moral argument, right? That kind of is naturally connected to a God and to the biblical, the Christian God in particular. So he's showing how to do Mars Hill kind of evangelism with the believers. He's modeling how to do it. And with non-believers, he's introducing them to the Christian faith through the marketplace of ideas and generally accepted opinions.
Yeah.
Right.
I think another aspect that you find, and I've said this over and over and over again, is that in the 20th century, the apologetic situation required us to deal with things like the hard sciences or archaeology or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's why we had all the conferences on this, 50 reasons why evolution is false and so on and so forth. In the 21st century, I think the real marketplace for ideas and the culture we exist is now in the social sciences. And Charlie was just an absolute expert in engaging that particular arena through the marketplace of ideas, like you were talking about, and these generally accepted premises that were taken as a bedrock foundation for just how society should function, how people should operate, and the way that we should appropriate it. And he just masterfully engaged those almost self-evident truths in some sense. We could argue how self-evident they are, but there's issues related to that and the social sciences. And he just showed the absolute absurdity of people who tried to answer those questions with cultural Marxist foundations.
Right.
And in that sense, it was just a beautiful apologetic that he would do on the college campuses. I think it's something that we need to recognize and appropriate in the way that we're going to actually reach out in our culture today. And I think another thing related to the issue of discipleship is that, you know, in so many respects, specifically with young men in particular, Charlie Kirk really did disciple them. And in one sense, you know, I cannot tell you how many people I know who are Christians in particular who said, Charlie Kirk is the man who convinced me to follow XYZ position. But also, Charlie Kirk was a massive evangelist. So, you know, one of the things that I do, I mean, I was saying this right before I came on here, 6 days a week, I'm at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym. I figure I can't choke the world out, but I can choke people that sign a waiver out. It's great. I recommend it to anybody who wants to do that. And I cannot tell you how many young men would come up to me and they knew that I worked in this kind of arena, and they would go, have you ever heard of this guy named Charlie Kirk? And I go, yeah, what did you watch about it? And, you know, it just led to so many more conversations. I mean, to the point that, like, I mean, I'm doing some people's weddings, participating in their, you know, life key events just because of that conversation that we had. And it's opened up a floodgate of opportunities in ministry.
Right. Just a quick thing here. We got a comment from Brian. Pricing people out of their rights, as Dr. Roach described, is a standard play of the left. They have been doing the same to the Second Amendment in recent years. Interesting.
We're talking about things and how consistent they are with years gone by. And Charlie Kirk, I mean, he's 31. He was 31 when he passed away last week. So he's been doing this for
13 years.
13 years. The world was really different 13 years ago. And it was different in ways that even 1 or 2 years ago, we couldn't have anticipated. And the primary way I'm thinking is something is going on with the young end of Gen Z and the beginning end of Generation Alpha. Something I have not seen. I don't know if anyone's seen it since maybe the 60s with the Jesus
we lived through
movement.
another cultural revolution is what we lived through. You know,
well, I'm talking about youth migrating into the church.
Okay, in that regard.
Unprecedented numbers. Yeah. They say church attendance in Germany is up significantly in this demographic that I just identified. And it's not just Protestants, but if you're a Protestant, among Protestants, there's a 10% increase in church attendance in Germany, a 15% increase among Catholics, and they're not going into liberal churches.
Right.
If the profile is very conservative Bible preaching churches in Germany, if they're Protestant, and traditional Catholic, the trad Cath, movement, if they're going into the Catholic Church. And we have a whole section of our church that's been here for a couple of years now, that's coming from the nearest university to us is about 40 to 45 minutes from us. They come every Sunday.
Praise God.
And we can't figure out. I mean, we know we've over the months we've kind of figured out the network of connections that brought them here. But it's it's unprecedented. It wasn't us, and I don't think, and we're seeing this across the nation. We're seeing it in Europe. God is up to something, and Charlie Kirk was there.
He was.
He was there
What-
for when it happened. He was kind of, here am I, send me. He was already on the scene when
Yeah.
God decided to make this happen.
We have, Ron and I have been talking about this because we have the same thing at my home church. We have a group. We're kind of a small church. We have a group that comes and they have questions. We have something called Wonder Lake Bible Institute every Sunday morning before the main service. Most of them are in there because they want to know. They have questions they want answered. And then every 2 months or so, they'll stop me and they'll say, "Okay, we need to come over to your house for dinner and we have questions."
Yeah.
So, so we set that up. We'll have that this Friday. This younger group, they are energetic. They want to know. They want to understand, and they want to toss around these ideas and say, "How do I think about them? How do I know the right position? How do I defend a position when someone confronts me?" They really want to be taught.
And to just piggyback on what I said earlier, last Wednesday when we have our midweek youth meetings, I am told that several of our youth had tears streaming down their faces.
Wow,
They were still
amazing.
processing the news that someone that they had looked up to, which we had no idea. I mean, we didn't know who was following them, but we were astounded at how many kids in our church he was influencing. And I'm not trying to lay this, put this to his credit, although it is. I'm saying there's a bigger picture, there's a bigger reality.
Right, right.
God is doing something, and I think that accounts for a lot of packed out stadiums,
Yeah.
having prayer services and vigils
For Charlie
since
Kirk.
last Wednesday.
So we're a little over, but I want to put this out here, maybe for some short answers, to Corey and to Bill. On Corey's end, how should churches and parents prepare their children for higher education? I know you're not going to advocate abandoning the universities. So how do you prepare them to be in the universities? And then for Bill, how do pastors uh, accomplish training their congregation to live in a contrary culture? Corey first.
So how do they prepare them, train them up in the way they should go, and when they get older, they get conscripted to work for the other side, like Bart Ehrman or other people? Right? That's how Hitler ran over Germany: is he would conquer and then he would conscript, and that's what's happening. And then the student falls, and the parent tries to keep the relationship after they go trans, and so then the parent goes progressive.
Right.
So it's a vicious situation going on. Look, parents are in a difficult situation right now, whether it's our own fault for creating the economic system we have requiring both parents to work, or if it is part of feminism, and the woman always working outside of the home, and now they both work outside of the home, and then that's creating family problems and birth rate problems for an entire country's survival. Or what? This is all across the West. The West is very similar right now in what they're going through. And I think so the answer is going to be something similar, even when it comes to all these revivals in Germany or UK or whatever. And then suddenly they're all doing Charlie Kirk things. These young men have been influenced by Joe Rogan,
Right.
by Andrew Tate, by Nick Fuentes, by Jordan Peterson, and by Charlie Kirk, and by Jesus. Who's going to capture them?
Yeah.
Right? But what parents need to do is, it's exhausting. You're both working maybe just to make ends meet now, whether that's because of the economy we've created or feminism or cultural things or whatever. It is what it is. Nonetheless, you cannot, as parents, depend on the local church today. Not that you should have in the past anyway, especially the youth pastor, who may be interested more in skinny jeans and fog machines than in, equipping people with scripture and good Christian thought. the parents are the primary educators of their children. And if they are not doing it, then we're paying for that apostasy. We lose them, not just at 18, but beyond that. Parents don't realize it's not just when they walk into these outrageous ratios of liberal to conservative professors, but already they have TikTok, already they have
Right.
social media and their friend groups and so forth. Already they're being engaged with these social science new ideas that our typical apologetics is not even adequate to address, right? It's why our philosophers never caught this new ideology coming through, because they're all trained in analytic philosophy, for example. This stuff is continental, whatever that even means. We need to, as parents, you can't do it all yourself, just like the pastor can't. But there are organizations, as you partner with them, who do have resources, who have studied this stuff, and who can help the parents come alongside as paracletes to raise them up. Parents need to love the kids enough, even when they're exhausted. They need to make the time. Otherwise, why are you having the kids in the first place? You don't want to give them an inheritance just to squander, because by the time they receive it, they have left the faith. You have given blood, sweat, and tears. You need to be able to appeal to organizations like seminaries that Bill Roach is part of, or the apologetics organization you guys are part of, or Ratio Christi and our product line. We have booklets now that are each 25 pages, 11th grade reading level, on everything from the problems of science, evil, and scripture, down to race, class, sex, gender, ethnicity, and so forth. If we're not teaching them, if the parents are not teaching them, someone will, I guarantee it.
All right. Bill.
So I think in response to your answer of how should pastors engage on this kind of topic, I think one of the big things that I look at is that there's this concept that was known as the Victorian loss of faith. And it's speaking about that Victorian period in England and the United States, in which you see individuals giving up the Christian faith. But when they were doing so, here's a key distinction between then and now, is that when they were rejecting Christianity, they were largely rejecting something that they knew and were aware of. They were catechized, they had read the Bible, and they were actively rejecting that. I think one of the big differences that we run into today is that the individuals in our churches today, when they are rejecting Christianity, they are not typically rejecting something that they know, in the sense of they were catechized in this, they've actually read the Bible. Rather, they are rejecting a caricature of something that they have heard about what Christianity is. So I think the first thing that we need to do is we need to not only give Schaeffer's concept of true truth, but we need to really return to the notion of what is true Christianity.
Right.
And before we even explain and defend Christianity in that sense, we have to realize that the first battle is the battle for the dictionary, and it's a dictionary on what is Christianity. So I would say one of the first things that people need to do is we need to return to a time in which we recognize that, yes, we believe in sola scriptura. Yes, we believe in teaching the Bible, but we also need to return to the idea that God has given us great confessions of faith throughout the history of the church to help summarize these biblical doctrines in clear ways and clear forms. And this is something that can be done in our churches. I think that there's a lot of that done in many Bible churches and also many confessional churches. And that's the first issue that needs to be done. And as it relates to pastors engaging this, a friend of mine, he's from South Africa, Simon Brace. He was my roommate, good friend, known him for decades on end. And we've been trying to answer this question for a number of years. And obviously it is engaging in the apologetic situation. So I don't want to pound that drum, not that it's not important, but because it was discussed just a moment ago by Corey. What I want to say is that I think we need to recognize the biblical understanding of the proper role of fathers in the home to lead their families. And it's as simple as this, is that call it whatever you want, family devotions, family worship, or whichever. This is a time that God has given. It's something that I would argue is a mandate upon the husband to wash their wives in the word, but also to lead their children in the word of God. And I think that that's one of the big things that has to happen is that churches, if they want to invest their time with precision accuracy that they're doing, they need to focus on reteaching the historic Christian faith so people know what they're actually believing or rejecting, like the old sort of confessional churches of old. And we need to invest back into our fathers and to our families so that it's actually something that's not just Sunday morning, but throughout the entire week. And let's be honest, there's nothing inherently wrong with youth ministry. It can be done well. It can be done in a way that's God honoring. But we also recognize that as the home declined and the role of the father turned into an equivalent Homer Simpson type of figure, fathers quit teaching their children and discipling their families in that regard. So I would say those are the two areas that I would tell a pastor to engage, because if you can win the home, you'll go very far in keeping students from being led down that path.
Perfect. All right. Now, in the description below, there's contact information for Bill and for Corey. Corey's book is also there. Order it. It'll be out in about, let's see, the 15th, right? October 14th.
That's right.
Yep. So get that. And Ron, would you care to walk us out of here?
Let's give credit to whom credit is due. Our resident cult leader profiler is Kneel Before Me. Our wardrobe manager is See How It Fits You. Culinary services are provided by Chef Ham and Cheese. Our tinfoil hat provisioner is Just In Case. Jehovah's Witnesses coverage comes from Armageddon and D Opposer. Our Mormon Archives manager is Polygamous. Our liberal denominations bureau chief is Lucy Goosey. Transgender issues coverage comes from Ben Hur, special correspondent for cults based on the Hindenburg disaster and flying turkeys. Oh, Dehumanity. Our fact-checking supervisor is Yoleg Pulling. Technical assistance comes through Merkel Research. Our legal advisors are at the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham & Howe. Our grievance resolution director is Giovanna Pisami. Our director of privacy assurance is Wiretapping. And original idea sourcing comes from Drew A. Blank. The Unknown Webcast is a production of Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. in cooperation with Emergency Manicure Productions, both of whom are solely responsible for this content, although you will never be able to prove that in a court of law.
Never happened. All right, gents. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
See you all of a sudden.